thanks, Eric, for once again agreeing to do another video for us. I did want to concentrate this video on Lent and a little bit about a memorable moment of your family, of sharing faith together, and then also, like, how do you see your family helping you towards holiness, and especially, as living out a vocation.
All right.
So.
Well, why don't we tackle that very first question, the importance of Lent?
Yes.
And, why do we, do the things that we do in Lent, such as, increase in prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, right?
Right.
Out of all the times of the year, Lent is actually very important for us, to kind of reflect that it's a time that we should prepare ourselves, for the coming of the kingdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, as Christians, we should always focus on this, 24/7, right?
Right, and not just the season of Lent.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. But the reason why Lent is so important is because it sets up that whole reason of how we're able to, be part of that kingdom, i.e., through Easter, the resurrection of Christ, right? Where everybody's rejoicing and celebrating because, it's because of Him. Not only did He die for our sins, but because through His resurrection, we can now enter into that eternal happiness, that eternal glory of the kingdom of heaven. But before that, though, we really have to set our minds into the fact of, am I worthy enough to enter into the kingdom of heaven, right? Because as you can see, because, in the parables, like, Christ says, everybody's invited to the kingdom of heaven, but only so few can really accept that invitation, right? Can actually go into the kingdom. And that's kind of, the sad part when it comes to today's catechesis, because everybody can believe that, if I proclaim that Jesus Christ is Lord of God, Jesus Christ is the Son of God, then I'm good, right? Or like, because Jesus welcomes everybody, right? That's the whole point of church.
Right.
Yes, and St. Paul's made that clear on many occasions, but there's more to that as well, right? And I think Lent's a good time to, really practice that idea, right? Because through prayer, right, we can add a little bit extra more prayer time, to our daily lives, right? Try and get into that personal connection with God. Almsgiving, not just, giving monetary value, but, giving up yourself as well for more charitable, actions, like that, whether that's, helping out the local food bank, doing some volunteer work somewhere.
Right.
That's also a good thing. And then the fasting, everyone's favorite, right? Everyone's favorite.
Right, like
fasting.
I'm just gonna give up chocolate. But, yeah.
And the whole goal of the fasting thing, like what can I give up? That's kind of distracting myself, from fully entering into that kingdom of God, right? What's distracting myself from the big picture? And that's kind of where the idea of the fasting comes from.
Okay.
And I think that's the time, and I think that's what Lent is really focused for, because we can. Because again, going to that first point, we can really, we should try, focus on the kingdom of heaven, 24/7. But as a human being, that's kind of impossible, right?
Right. Well, it's kind of like I had a priest friend of mine tell me one time. He said, he's like, the point of fasting, in addition, like the practice of self-control, is that it also offers us clarity in, like, what God's actually asking us when we combined it with prayer, right?
That's
you can't
right.
just be like, okay, I'm going to give up chocolate because I want to lose weight during,
It's like I want to give up fried food items, so that way I can, keep my swimsuit body.
my hourglass figure. It's more like a pear-shaped figure.
That's right. Oh goodness.
So.
But to me, that's that's what the season of Lent is for, and I think why the season of Lent is so important. Because again, we're all getting ready for hopefully the second coming of Christ, and that where we can all enter into the kingdom of heaven.
Right, and that's ultimately, it's not just about Easter and eggs and chocolate, but it is actually about the resurrection and the promises of God that are coming with the resurrection, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So, along those same lines, like, we can then move into the other question is like, I asked you if you have a favorite time where you share your faith together with your family, because like we're joining in, looking forward to the resurrection together. It's not just singular, like, good luck, Eric, you're going to be on your way to heaven. It's a collective thing, right? So.
One of my favorite memories, I think, was when I initially told the family, about my official discernment, right? Because really, my initial discernment process, I was probably about maybe 8 years old at the time. I was just barely making my first communion, and of course, I have an uncle who's a priest. And I remember when I made my first communion, he asked, everybody, do you, it's like, stand up. Yeah, he literally told, like, all these 8-year-old kids, like, stand up if you think you want to join the priesthood and religious life. And me, for whatever I was thinking, I was one of those, few kids that, stood up thinking that, like, yeah, I can totally do this. Because, I think I can do my uncle's job, like, 8-year-old kids, it's like, man, my uncle has the coolest job in the world. Of course I want to do that, And I never initially understood, why. Why did I stand up, as part of that, Of course, that was a death sentence as an 8-year-old kid at that moment, because now all your family wants to, the primary question when you first see your family members, whenever you go to, like, a family function is, hey, Eric, you still thinking about being a priest? Like, that's always the first question they always ask me. Now, like, it's not like, hey, how are you? Oh, hey, Eric, it's good to see you. It's, hey, Eric, you still thinking about being a priest? Like, that was the initial.
I get it.
It was the initial comment every time I went to a family gathering. But I think it was beautiful because the more I grew into that, the more it really started to focus again about, what is Christ? What is God really calling me to do? And I remember, like, we talked about that as a family, like, because it was one of those big decisions. It's like the same question about getting married, right? It's these two different vocations, and it's really a life decision, to really think about, right? Because this is a vocation where you kind of spend the rest of your life with, thinking about. And I remember, saying that, and I, just be there, just completely open with my parents, even my little sister in the room. Just be open with them, be like, these are my worries. If I do follow these paths, these are my, this is where I'm really looking forward to. And I remember it ultimately came down to, like, is God calling you this, or are we trying to force this on you? And that's the kind of like the aha moment, right? It's like, am I doing this for myself? Or, like, am I really thinking of this, as myself, not because my parents or family members or outside people are trying to force this on me. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, for me, that was probably one of the better parts of my discernment, because, again, it really helped me to see, like, is this my true, authentic vocation? And what's fruitful about that is that it really opens up that connection, with discernment. Because everybody makes the, some people kind of get the misconception that discernment is just about thinking only. It's more than just that. It's thinking and praying, right?
Right.
And you really have to, and it's really focused between you and God, no one else. That's one of the beautiful things about discernment. As you said earlier, that prayer, that getting into that system of prayer, where you really focus on your relationship between yourself and God. And it's awesome. It's amazing, it's an amazing feeling to feel that. And so, to me, that was one of the more fruitful things about that, sharing the faith, in that sense. And the vocation was it really allowed me to officially discern on whether or not, was God calling me to do this or not. And granted, 7 years later, I can say I think I still made the right choice.
Well, no. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I get it. Well, you're talking about, every family member saying, hey, are you going to be a priest, or are you still like, no, hey, how are you doing? I had a grandma growing up, and she would do the same thing. How's my little priest? Like,
isn't it the worst?
Like, really? But, like, yeah. But nonetheless, I'm still in ministry now. So. Yeah, so I like what you're saying, though, about how you and your family got together and talked about that vocation. And I guess that's really what you basically answered that last question of how they lead you towards that holiness, helping you see,
And
the benefits or the
Mm-hmm.
not losses but
Mhm.
challenges.
And thanks be to God too that I have parents and I have family that are really, supportive with my decisions. Because I know some seminarians, it's kind of sad to think about, but there have been some parents, where they're totally against the idea of their son being a priest or their daughter being a nun. And it's kind of sad when you think about it. But because I even remember too, one guy told me like his parents, try to bribe him, to try and get into like this best school or something like that. Just connections. But no, he was adamantly focusing on, priesthood, and thanks be to God, he's still in. He's probably one of the greatest guys I know. And I think he'd make an excellent priest down the line. But yeah, again, I have been so thankful, and that I've been graced with a family that has been very supportive. Now, granted, it's kind of a two-edged sword because I remember, when I was in high school, I brought a girlfriend home, to meet the parents. I remember one of my aunts in the kitchen was just asking my mom, I was like, what's that girl doing with him? He's supposed to be a priest, like.
Well, he's not in seminary yet.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. But but again, it's that again that's something. You stand up as an 8-year-old, like, hey, Eric, are you going to be a priest? Like it's just
It's set in stone.
Exactly. Exactly.
No.
So they're very supportive, but sometimes it can get to the overzealous protection.
Right. Yeah.
Oh goodness, but I love them still either way.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's family.
If family wasn't going to be embarrassing enough, then they're probably not your family members anyways, right? Because that's what that's part of the best things about family. They're supposed to be embarrassing on purpose, like,
embarrassing, and sometimes that pebble in the shoe.
Oh goodness, yes.
Yeah.